guys, we got with us Michael. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Typical Skeptic podcast. Tonight we're going to be getting into with Michael Grubb from his Evolved Ministries, self-mastery, near-death experiences, UFOs, and conscious evolution. Michael Grubb is the leader of Evolved Ministries, a seasoned practitioner and teacher of self-mastery with 30 plus years in metaphysical exploration and universal consciousness cultivation. After two near-death experiences, including a recent brain aneurysm, a life-changing UFO encounter, and decades of rigorous inner training, Michael now instructs a global community on how to consciously navigate reality and reconnect with their innate potential. Michael believes love is the guide, evolution is the path, and the separation is the illusion. Tonight, we'll explore the personal journey, the future of Evolved Ministries, UFO contact, self-mastery training, and the challenges of dealing with the spiritual egos in the metaphysical community. Join us live at 8 p.m. Eastern for an inspiring, no BS conversation on practical metaphysics, conscious evolution, and reclaiming your sovereignty. And with all that said, I'd like to give him a big warm welcome back to the show for the first time. Michael, thank you so much for coming on. It's very nice to meet you. How are you?
As good as I can be. So, like you touched on a second ago, I just recently had last month on the 5th, I recently had a brain aneurysm. So my brain is still trying to catch up with everything. The way I think, my headspace, it's kind of weird, but, I'm good. I'm back.
It's tough. I mean, I can't believe you survived. That's amazing that you survived that. Like, I guess you want to start off there. I was going to say, like, what caused your spiritual awakening? Like, do you want to just take us through your journey and tell us a little bit about yourself first and like your journey that's so far in life?
Sure. Well, the spiritual journey, like it began early on, like very early on. I had a death experience. A lot of people say near death, but I actually died of pneumonia right around 5 years old, which ended up having a pretty profound effect upon how I see reality. I had other experiences moving after that, that essentially once the whole death experience happened, I started having all sorts of weird side effects, which led me later on in life and in my 20s to start to seek, how to utilize my mind in a different way. And then right at 30 years old, I ended up having a UFO experience. So I'm just kind of taking you through bit by bit real quick, and then we'll focus on the specifics. Then I had a UFO experience. It was May 5th of 2004, which accelerated some of the quote unquote abilities, because I say quote unquote, because I think that the abilities are something that all human beings have. And then from there, it just led me into teaching. And the whole teaching thing, basically, once I got accelerated with my abilities, it became pretty obvious what I was supposed to use it for. I can get into that as well, the specifics of it. But then I just started teaching, and then it created this global system that we have now. We're not huge, but we're not small. So we definitely have, quite a few people out there that are training that sign up every single day. So whatever you want to focus on, whatever specific that you want me to hit, you just let me know.
Let's talk about I'd like to get into the near-death experiences and the UFO experiences. Like, what happened with all those? If you could talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, so we'll start with the first one. The first one was I died of pneumonia. So I was a child. I was about 5 years old. And what happened is the one thing that I can remember is I was having a dream where I was falling. And I woke up from it. I kind of walked down the hallway to my parents' bedroom, and then I was trying to tell them about the dream that I just had, but apparently I was talking in gibberish. Nothing that I was saying was making sense. And so my mother ended up putting her hand on my forehead and then found out that, I had a fever. And so she ends up calling the ambulance, or the hospital, immediately. And at that point, they pretty much told her that my temperature was so high that if they took me into the hospital, I wouldn't make it, or if they sent an ambulance out right at that point and they waited, that I wouldn't make it. So basically what they told my mom over the phone was to get me into a tub of ice immediately. Now, this was back in 1978. This is how they handled things back then. Okay, so I'm 51 years old. And essentially what they did exactly what the people at 911 told them to do. They took me down. My dad actually basically dragged me down the hallway, threw me into the tub, started running cold water. I could hear a ruckus going on in the kitchen, which that was my mother just pulling tons of ice. And so what ends up happening is she starts coming in, handing my dad the ice, and then he starts throwing the ice into the water. And at this point, I'm asking, number one, I was asking why he was running cold water, because, that's not how we take a bath, And then he just kept reassuring me. He would not address the issue. He just kept saying everything's going to be all right and kept reassuring me. And he started throwing ice into the water. Well, this did not take long before I started feeling extremely uncomfortable. Okay. I could feel my limbs. They started going really cold. I could feel that my body was, I don't know what you would call that. I mean, I'm sure people would say that it was shock. But I could feel that my heart was first pounding really fast. And then after about a minute or two, maybe less, I have no idea. But I remember my heart, I could hear my heart in my ears, and it started going to a lull. It started going to a slow lull. And I remember this bitter feeling all over me. And then I started trying to kick out of it. And then my dad kept pushing me back down. So no matter how much I would kick, no matter how much I would struggle, he'd continue to push me down. Now, I guarantee you that more than likely that the ice and being in there and then going from one temperature to the next played a big role in the fact of me going out, of me dying in that moment. And so what ended up happening is I remember that it was just like an old tube television set. I was sitting there kind of struggling. And then the next thing I remember was my vision goes narrow. It was like tunnel vision. And then it was like a light just went out. And then I'm gone. Completely gone. I would later wake up in the hospital. And then I remember it was either a nurse that said it or someone that was in there said it. She was like, "Oh, we almost lost you." And then the doctor said, technically we did lose him. And he said something for like 4 minutes or something like that. And so shortly thereafter, as I started experiencing stuff.
What ended up happening to you, Michael? Was it pneumonia?
Yeah, it was pneumonia that got me. I had a really...
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. It was a really powerfully high fever from pneumonia, and that's what kind of started the whole thing off. And it's weird to me that I can go to sleep the night before and be just fine and then wake up with pneumonia, but that's kind of the way that worked. And it was extremely uncomfortable. It was probably some of the worst pain that I've had. I've had worse pain, for real. But that was some of the worst pain that I think I've ever experienced. I was up there in the top 5 for sure.
Insane. That's insane. And what do you remember, like, when you went out? Do you remember anything?
Well, I remember everything going black, and I was conscious in the blackness for maybe like 30 seconds, maybe less. But there was no heaven, there was no hell, there were no angels, there were no demons, there was nothing in that space. So it was kind of just like going to the void, checking out for a little bit, which the same thing basically happened when I went into the aneurysm, when I had the aneurysm just recently. Didn't see anything, don't remember anything other than that. I do remember being conscious going into the blackness. I remember that very well. And then that was it, gone. A lot of people get upset when I tell that story because a lot of people, they're religious. And so they want to hear that there was some sort of something waiting, but there was absolutely nothing. And so it was just
Yeah, that's it's scary. I mean, so you never had an NDE like most people have. What you would say, like you've never actually like went to like a place where like you've experienced something like 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 something magical or something like that. Like angelic or something.
Yeah, I think that's, I hear a lot of people, and a lot of people tell their stories, and they'll say that they experienced things like that. That was not my experience. My experience was I just went into complete darkness, and I don't know. The one thing I remember about it was that I felt fine. I felt absolutely fine. That there was nothing that I had to worry about. That I didn't have to do anything. It was just that I was there, and yeah, it's unfortunate that it does seem to upset a lot of people that when I do tell my story that I'm not reinforcing something for them. But the one thing that I do know is that I felt absolutely fine. That there was no fear, there was no nothing, there was nothing to fear, there was nothing to accomplish. It was just peace.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. So, do you think that's what happens to us when we pass? Do you think we go to a void first, and do you have an opinion on the afterlife?
I do. I mean, I've had more than enough out of body experiences. I've had more than enough astral travels and things like that to think that there's definitely things out there. But when it comes to death, I think we go to possibly, stations like that where there's absolutely nothing until you're either recycled, put back into the matrix, so to speak, whatever it takes. You just kind of go to a place where you're held for a little bit. Or maybe it is just that. Maybe, when you're done, because like I said, I've had more than enough astral travels, but that's still with my brain operating, right? I've had more than enough out of body experiences to where your brain can create or move through spaces or dimensions. But, it's quite possible when your brain gets shut off, that's it'd be the same thing as a television set or a monitor or whatever. As soon as that thing goes off, you know you're held into a place where you have to move or wait or whatever it takes, in order to push you to the next stage or phase of your existence. But I don't want to take away from anyone else's experiences. That was my experience. I do think that or actually, I know that I've talked to a lot of people who have had their experiences, or they say that they've had their experiences where I knew that they were lying about their experience. I have an ability to where I can look and actually read people's energy and see whether or not what they're telling is the truth. But that's face to face. It's not like I can do it through a monitor or something like that. But face to face, I can actually read people's energy and know that whether they're telling the truth or not. Plus, there's also many different tells to whether a person is lying with their body language and whatnot, and the way they utilize their eyes. But for me, all I have to do is look at their energy, and it lets me know. Like your body starts to act differently, your endocrine system starts to flush different things, and then it'll give different colors and whatnot. But I'm not going to say that everyone out there who has had an experience that was near death or death related, that they're telling either the truth or a lie. Because I've only met three other people who have actually died, and their experience was the exact same as mine. They said that they went into complete blackness.
Because I didn't want to. I was muted. Sorry. I've heard other people say that too. So I think it's a really interesting perspective, and it's a good point for like if the brain shuts down. Is that what happens? Do we go somewhere like that? Like you said before, we get recycled back into the matrix. But like, do you think we can escape the matrix for people that want out of here?
Okay, so that's a good question. So that's partially what I teach. Is there an escape to the matrix? Absolutely, because the matrix is frequency based. Everything is frequency based. So when I talk about frequency, I'm talking about a bandwidth. Okay, so let's just say that this reality operates on the bandwidth. You got 0 to 10. All right, we'll just say that. So if your bandwidth and you're a negative person and it goes below that 0 point, I do believe that you're sent to a place that exists beneath that 0 point. You call it the negative areas or whatnot. And when you go to that 0 or past that 0 point, you're probably going to be in a reality that is much harder and much more volatile than the reality that we're currently in. Now, if you go to a place above that 10 point, okay, then you're going to go to a different reality. You're going to go to a place where, you know, maybe it's more beautiful. Maybe it's more malleable than a place like this, okay, where things operate differently, where there's not as much violence, negativity, hate, or fear. But I do believe, from what I've experienced, that you can actually eclipse that bandwidth. So if you do the work, you do the ego work, you do the spiritual work, you do what it takes in order to, for lack of a better term, upgrade your frequency, then you will move past that 10 point, and then you will go into a better world, a better system. So, but I believe it's all mathematically based. So if you are the type of person, you came here to murder, pillage, and do whatever, okay, then more than likely you're going to go beneath that bandwidth of the 0 point. And that's all you came to do was just negative stuff. And if you came here to just kind of sit and not do anything, you don't mobilize, you don't try to better yourself, then you're going to stay within that 0 to 10 bandwidth. And then you're going to stay right here. You'll get recycled into this place over and over and over again. But then, like I said, then you have that 10 point spot where you've done the work, you've busted your behind, you did what it took to eclipse the bandwidth of that point, then you will go on to that next stage. And I've seen, in let's just say my astral travels and whatnot, I've seen places like that. I do have memories of other worlds where I have been. I do believe I know where I came from, but that's a whole different topic. But yeah, that is my personal experience with all of this, is that yes, there's a way to escape it, if that's what you want to call it, because a lot of people, there's a lot of people who are perfectly fine living in a world like this and doing it over and over again. There's other people who are not perfectly fine with it. They would rather move on and they'd rather do better things. So I think it's all dependent upon the person and what they truly want.
Well, do you believe in like entities or archons? And do you feel like, because like I had an entity attachment recently, like where it was like basically like mooshing off me for like 2 months, you know, and basically, you know, I came to this conclusion. I feel like these entities manipulate our realities, like, or they try to like manipulate our lives, so we would probably end up in a lower place, like you said. Like, you know, I don't know how much entities influence us, but after what I experienced, it seems like they could be influencing us a lot, and a lot of people might not even realize it. I don't know what you think about that.
I'm 100% positive that that's what's happening. You know, I'm not going to try to tell a person that I'm 100% positive for them, because you know how people work. But I will say this, I played with it all. Are there other entities out there? Are there other intelligences? 100%. Our eyes only pick up 1% of the bandwidth of the spectrum, and the visible spectrum, very, very, very small. Okay. Same thing with our ears. So we're basically walking blind and deaf in this place. Yes, 100%. There are other entities. There's positive, there's negatives. I can tell you, I mean, I kind of want to get into the aneurysm for that very purpose, but I also want to protect a person. I will say that my aneurysm was 100% influenced by negative entities. It was 100% influenced. And I knew it was coming. That was the other aspect of things, is the fact that I knew what was happening. So someone very close to me basically had something attached to them. And I had told them about it ahead of time. And I also told a few of my students about it ahead of time as well. And so I knew what I was dealing with when I was dealing with this person. And what ended up happening was, you know, I deal with this person on a daily basis. And this person was bringing a ton of stress on me for quite some time. And we won't go into what the stress was about. But I started experiencing gradually headaches more and more, and they were getting stronger and stronger. These headaches weren't like anything. A lot of people think a migraine. See, a migraine is a very specific thing. A migraine headache is when you see light and it feels like a laser is piercing your brain. The light is so strong and it'll induce nausea. It'll induce a lot of pain. And typically what you end up having to do is you have to lay down until that migraine passes. And what these headaches were, multiply that by 20. And so what I ended up experiencing was a subarachnoid hemorrhage through the anterior communicating artery. So this wasn't a blood vessel that was being attacked. This was the actual artery in my brain. And so what ended up happening was this person, like I said, had this thing attached to them. And one night while we were together, the aneurysm exploded. And the thing was, like I said, I had told people that I knew it was coming, and I knew that something was coming. I didn't specifically say that I knew I was going to have an aneurysm because I didn't know that that was the way it was going to manifest. But so that particular night, that was on the 5th of June. Okay, so we're now in July. It was on the 5th of June. Actually, it was the 4th, the night of the 4th, and then on the 5th, I went to the hospital. And basically, the doctors ended up telling me, it was funny because when I woke up out of this aneurysm was supposedly the absolute worst one that a person possibly has a 60% mortality rate. And then those who live from it either usually have some form of paralysis on either side of their body, or they're vegetables. But somehow I came out of this without any problems. So that in itself, the doctors kept telling my parents, are like, this is a miracle. We don't know how this occurred. We don't know how this transpired. We don't know what's going on with it. But they entered me into a paid study because they were so confused as to why I had no horrible side effects. So as everyone keeps telling me, somebody out there was looking out for me, right? Nonetheless, but it was 100% induced by this thing that was in this person who's close to me. And I kept telling this person repeatedly, we got to do something about it. You know, something's going to end up happening, yada, yada, blah, blah. And I knew that what was going to end up happening was it was going to come to me. I just knew it 100%. And then on that particular night, I literally saw it literally overlaid over the person that I was with. And then what ends up happening was, so I'm going to tell you what I experienced in the aneurysm. I was with the person, and then all of a sudden I saw what appeared to be a line go across their face. Okay. It was the weirdest thing. So I'm looking at her and I see the line go across her face. And then I see what appears to be light opening up out of her face. And then I saw the most beautiful, brilliant colors I've ever seen, but every shade of like purple, every shade of blue, every shade of orange, red, you name it, it was there. And then all of a sudden I saw that person's image flip upside down, and then it looked like it landed on black plastic wrapping. And it was 2-dimensional at this point. So no longer 3-dimensional picture. And I'm looking, and I end up looking closer, and then all of a sudden I see everything go black. Well, at that point, I was having a seizure. The colors that I experienced, the thing that went across her face, that was the aneurysm bursting. So that was my artery literally popping inside of my head, and then everything going black. So yes, I'm going to 100% say there are negative entities, and there's positive ones too. So that's something that people need to understand. There's positive and negative in all of this. But I'm going to 100% back you up in saying that whatever you experienced was probably very real, because they're there. There's intelligences interlaid and overlaid all throughout this particular world. So that's why I will give you on that. I think you're muted.
So that's so wow. I can't believe you survived that. Honestly, like that's insane. Honestly, that's wow. Let me ask you this: what happened with your UFO experiences? You had some really life-changing UFO experiences as well, right?
Yeah, I did. So that was May 5th of 2004. And I had decided that I wanted to go meditate at a place called Leonard Springs, which is down the road from the house that I currently live. Okay. So it's not more than like 3 or 4 minutes away driving. And I lived a little bit west from where I'm at right now at that time. And so I went out there one night and I was walking down the path, and this was spring. So it's May 5th, like I said, 2004. And you can hear the birds chirping. You can hear the crickets doing their thing. Everything's going on as normal. When I walked down the path to go right to go into the springs portion, the very second that my foot hit that threshold to go over there, it was as if sound stopped. There was no more birds chirping. There was no more crickets. There was no more spring sounds, period. It's as if there was a vacuum. And that ended up freaking me out a little bit. So that caused me to pause and stop. And I would later realize, well, actually, I guess I'll get to that in a second. But it freaked me out so much that I decided to leave, even though I was at first telling myself, I'm not freaked out. I just want to go. I just want to go to the creek behind my house as opposed to deal with this, right? But I was freaked out. I was scared in that moment because what was that, right? So I end up driving back, and I go to my house first, and I pick up something to drink, and then I drive around this road called Hines Road, which winds all the way around, and then it opens up into two farmers' fields. So one farmer owns one side of the field to the left of the road, and another farmer owns all the stuff to the right of the road. And I'm looking across, and I can see what appears to be what I thought was a security light that was above this farmer's home. And I didn't think it was anything, but it was a big, bright light. So I was like, oh, well, more than likely he's got a security light there that's watching all his animals, because he has a ton of animals out there. And he has two large Newfoundlands that used to guard those animals. I don't know if they're still there, because the last time I drove out there, I did not see them. Nonetheless, so I think that that's what I'm looking at, and I'm still just driving around the corner to get up to that area, because the creek runs right past that farmer's home. Okay, it goes underneath the road, and then on either side of the road is the creek. And so what I was going to do was just go into the little bridge area and then meditate down by the creek. Well, I parked my car probably 50 feet behind the front of the farmer's house, because I don't want him looking out and seeing some car sitting out in front of his house, and then him come out and cause problems. Well, I get out of the car, and I'm kind of walking up, and I'm still looking at this light, and I'm just like, what is that thing? Like, is it a security light? And as I'm walking up, I notice that it starts to move, and I'm not hearing any sound whatsoever. Okay. And so now I'm wondering what it is that I'm looking at. And it takes it a minute, and it gets over me. And here's the thing about the whole thing, because I've thought about this a million times, and I've talked about it a million times. But when I was first driving in and it was dark outside, I never saw what this light was attached to. It was as if this thing, whatever it was cloaked in the sky somehow. Okay. All I saw was the light. And then when this thing gets over me, you're talking about something that was about the size of a stadium. Okay. And it shuts off one light, the one light that I was looking at, and then turns on all these other lights that are at the very bottom of it. And they were all in these triangles that went all the way around the bottom of the craft. And I'm looking at a massive egg-shaped craft. And so I'm looking at this thing, and then I look at the farmer's house to the left of me, the farmer's house to the right of me, and they didn't have any lights on, which means there's no one awake and there's no one to help. And so at this particular point, I become pretty freaked out. And this is the thing that I was going to add earlier, is I always wondered whether the sound going silly back then when I was at Leonard Springs was them manipulating that sound and then me deciding to go right where they were at and have them waiting for me. I have no idea. One could equate to the other. Who knows? But it seemed like a pretty well-laid trap to me. Anyway. So this thing's above me. I get freaked out and I try to run. So I tried to run back to my car. And by the way, this thing wasn't way up in the sky. This thing was about 150 to 200 feet in the air. It was right above me. And so I'm thoroughly freaked out. I tried to run to the car. And as I turned to run like this and pivot this way, it literally pivots me back towards it. I lose the ability to move my arms. I lose the ability to move my legs. So against my will, I'm now held there. And now I'm staring at this thing. I'm looking straight up. I think my mouth was open. And that's when I feel this weird interaction. It was like an electrical pulse that went from my temple down to my ear. And then, we're right here where you feel the pulse in your neck. All of a sudden, I start feeling a vibration there and through here and through here. And I can feel everything jumping. It feels like on either side of my neck that there's this an electrical pulse and it's just making everything jump. And then at that particular point, once I'm registering that, I start to see a bunch of images. And the images are flying by at like light speed, and I cannot focus on any single one image. So I'm trying my best to like just focus on one thing, but I can't. Yet I'm still staring straight up, and I'm still seeing this craft as this is happening. So I'm aware of both things. And then what is really interesting is that I tried to tell myself to run in my head. I can't literally say it out loud, so I'm like, run. But I hear my own voice pinging almost like into infinity in my head. So I'd say like, run, leave, save yourself. And these things would all start to ping back and forth inside my head, just ding, 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 ding. And I'm giving you examples of things that I thought. I definitely know I said ran. All the other things could have been anything, right? But I'm hearing my own voice just go back inside my head over and over and over again. And then it starts to sound like garble, just jabber. And so now I'm still staring up at this thing. And then I remember eventually it turns off the bottom lights. And then a red light comes on, which I think was a laser that came down. And then I am all of a sudden back into my body. Like, not that I was ever outside of my body, but now I have control over my body again, my arms and my legs. And then I watch this thing start to fly off, and it's moving in tilts like this. It's like doing little quarter turns as it's flying away. Now, at this point, I'm running back to my car. I get in my car, and I see this thing go up behind some trees, and it looks like it lands. I don't know if it landed or not. And I do remember a bunch of white light spewing out from the trees, and at this point, I'm driving home. And I get into my house. The first stupid thing that I can think to do is I run and I grab my gun, as if that's going to have any effect whatsoever, right? These guys just froze up my arms and my legs against my own will, and I go and grab a gun. And it takes me about 5 minutes to realize how stupid it was that I grabbed the gun, so I finally set it down. And then I wait for my girlfriend at that time. Her name was Lynette, and I wait for her to wake up in the morning so I can tell her everything. And she believes none of it. Not a bit of it. And so I had to deal with her for over a year. Not only did she not believe me, she didn't really talk to me much. And then she actually tried to conspire with my family to get me thrown into a mental institution for a little bit, but that didn't work. But May 12th of 2005 comes around, and then they come back again. Okay. But this time they come back in large numbers, and it's to the point where I can actually take people out and show them. I could tell when they were going to be at a place, where they were going to be, and then they would show up every single time. So I was able to show my girlfriend which that ended up freaking her out big time. And then she apologized to me very profusely. I was able to show friends. Some of my footage ended up on UFO Hunters. And it was, I think the show was called Dark Presence. And so two of the videos ended up on that.
Nice. That's awesome.
It was very validating. And it was one of those things where, you know, I had doubted myself for so long, for like an entire year. I knew what I experienced, but when you're told so many times by so many different people, you probably didn't see what you think you did. You're probably a bit nuts. This, or maybe there's something wrong with you. But then you're able to come back and show these people, the same people that said that stuff, and be like, hey, just come out. I promise you, you won't be disappointed. And every single time for about a year, if I told a person that they were going to be there, they were there. And they would show up just like that. And so that ended up being a very big thing for me. But that's where things started getting really shifty then, because the military started showing up, which I have tons of footage of. I still have at least 4 or 5 videos on my present YouTube channel of showing the military showing up over my house and just circling over and over and over again. Just repeated circles over my house, and tight ones. Not like ones that they disappear for about 30 seconds and then they come back this way. Or no, we're talking like tight circles. And so that got weird because they would show up at all times of night, all times of day. And they would not only show up with choppers, but they would show up with these black military vehicles that were clearly unmarked. And they did this for a long time. And so it got to the point, there was one time I remember in particular, it was like 3 a.m. and my girlfriend at that time, Lynette, she wakes me up, and she's waking me up out of a dead sleep. And then that's when I can hear the choppers. And she's like, they're over our house right now. And then I look out the window and you can see they're streaming light, their spotlights right through our windows. And so I remember grabbing my gun and running out. And as soon as I ran out there, the chopper goes up and then it takes off. So as soon as I had gotten, myself decent enough with a shirt and, some pants, and I got my gun, they didn't see me with the gun or anything like that, but they were done doing what they were doing. They just raised up and took off. And so that got kind of weird for a while, because I think that happened for a good 4 or 5 years, that they just kept showing up and showing up. I've got students that saw them as well. And so it became a thing, but that's when this weird thing started happening as well too, which was I started getting trained, not only in my sleep, but they would show up physically. And when I say they, I'm talking about the intelligences that were in the crafts. They started showing up at places. So I would know to go to like some undisclosed location, and then they would show up and start training me with these abilities. Okay. Again, abilities with air quotes. And so I started getting extremely proficient at the abilities, and the training was really rough. I'm going to say that because they could make you feel as if you hadn't slept for weeks. They could actually make it so you wouldn't sleep for weeks. I had 2 other friends who were being trained by them. One was named Kevin Huff. The other guy's name was John Tosti. You can look John Tosti up on the internet right now if you were wanting to. He had his, and it's TOSTI. But they ended up getting trained the same way I was getting trained. One of them, which was Kevin, he ended up blowing his head off. And the other guy hung himself because the training was extremely, extremely rough. So people think that Navy SEALs go through tough training, and people think that military people go through tough training. This was stuff where they could make you feel as if you were on an operating table and you were being cut apart into pieces and then put you back together again. Okay. And you would feel it. It was very physical. Okay. And this sort of stuff would happen night after night for a while, and then they would give you a small break. And then night after night, it would pick up again, and then you'd get a small break. And so they could put you through simulations. I had one simulation where I would constantly keep waking up to go to work over and over again. So what would happen was and they did this on a weekend when it was crucial for them to do it, not on an actual work day. But so one of these simulations was I would wake up, I was sure I had to be at work, I'd get dressed, eat my food, do all the things that you need to do before you go to work. I would drive to work, I would clock into work, and then as soon as I would clock into work and get ready to go out, I would wake back up again. And this happened so many times. I couldn't tell you how many times.
Wow.
But I kept getting put through this over and over again until I finally figured out how to break that cycle, which was just don't wake up for work. And once I finally did that, boom, I woke up and I was out of that simulation. And it was probably one of the scariest moments that I had, because you're completely conscious as they're putting you in this simulation. You're completely conscious, but you're asleep. Okay. And that was part of the problem is I thought I was freaking going nuts, because I kept waking up, go to work, kept waking up, go to work. And then finally I was like, just stay in bed. And then boom, it pulled me right out of it.
That's amazing. That I don't even know what to say. Like, that's so who are these intelligences that you're referring to?
I mean, I know what they look like. A lot
Who
of people
do you think they are?
I really couldn't tell you, because these guys don't introduce themselves. That's the thing. Like, they don't say, hey, I'm here from such and such planet and blah, blah, blah. No, it's just everything's all telepathic, and it's do this, do that, do this. Now, the ones that I saw in particular were tall, blonde hair, blue-eyed people. And then they have their drones, which are what we consider, or what mankind considers being gray. The drones are nothing more than robots. Grays are, from what I have seen, are nothing more than robots. They come down here and they do whatever work, they gather whatever samples are needed, and then they go back up and they give it to their bosses. But from what I saw, these were blonde hair, blue-eyed people, tall, between 7 to 9 feet. And yeah, they have their own agenda. They have their thing that's going on here, which is they want mankind to evolve. That's very clear. And this is the thing that they told me that I needed to teach people here. And so that is the very reason why I now do Evolved Ministry, because what we do is we teach people how to evolve, how to overcome their ego, how to overcome negative traits within themselves, so that way they can increase their vibration and then learn how to access their abilities. And so once you start to do that, and things begin to get very different in your life, because you can literally, you can orchestrate your life any way that you choose. Like, for instance, I don't have a normal 9-to-5 job. My job is teaching this stuff. So I didn't have to enter someone else's world and, clock in and do whatever. After all this stuff, I recreated my reality entirely based around teaching people. So, and if you take what you're doing, for instance, right now, I don't know if that's your living, but you are now a podcaster. This is what you do. So that's kind of interesting. You have your own way of doing things. Not a lot of people get that chance down here. Not a lot of people know how to adapt to how this world operates. And so that's exactly what they taught me to teach other people how to do.
Yeah, it took me a while to get to where I'm at, I mean, I even lost a YouTube channel. I had 20,000 followers. YouTube took it away. But I mean, I still keep going on. It's like, right now I don't have to rely completely on YouTube, but I mean, it's still a racket, I'd like to learn the stuff you do, though. I really would. Like, I'd like to learn, like, telekinesis, psychokinesis. That's what you're teaching people, right? You're teaching people, like, psi abilities, right?
Yeah, I'm teaching that, but it's also, so once you learn that you can affect matter, once you learn that you can affect weather and the things around you, then if I can go outside and do a certain thing, and then I get a certain thing that comes back, every single time, that's showing you that you're literally manipulating reality around you. Okay, so I sit here and play with some pen or whatever, or if I go outside and then I say I'm going to create a storm, and that storm happens within 5 minutes or 10 minutes of me beginning, and it was a clear blue sky, okay, or wind or whatnot, then that means that my thoughts have a direct effect on the reality around me, that my thoughts are actual electrical impulses that are going out and affecting the frequencies around me, which means if I can do that, that means I can build my life exactly the way that I choose. That I can put a thought towards something and then make that happen, make it manifest, and then it can occur. But the thing is if you do it and you're not doing it under the umbrella of unconditional love, then you could also be setting yourself up too. You could be setting yourself up in a negative way, because human thoughts are very chaotic.
I was just going to say, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
That's right. And so your negative thoughts can also affect everything around you negatively. I remember when I was younger, because I used to be, in my 20s, I was a very violent, volatile individual. I was horrible. And I was so negative that I could walk into a room and then people would start to feel that, and then they would start to clear out. So the thing is you can affect things both positively and negatively. If you're in a state of unconditional love, then you're going to affect things in a positive, beneficial manner for your environment. But if you are a negative, horrible, hateful person, you're going to do the same thing, and everything around you is going to feel it. And so the thing is where you focus your attention on, that's what's going to probably manifest or occur. And I know people that all they do is complain. All they do is think hateful thoughts. And then they wonder why their lives are going to complete crap. It's because that is the world that they are putting themselves in. And so if you are a positive, loving person, then you're going to get the exact opposite of that, right? You're going to get positive things that happen. Things are going to come to you that are beautiful. And you're going to build the life the way you choose, but it goes both ways. And so if you are a chaotic person, you're thinking chaotic thoughts, you don't know how to focus your thoughts, you don't know how to take that focus and be willful with them, then what's going to happen is what's going on up here, which is chaos, is going to happen in your environment. And I've seen it a million times.
Interesting. I could talk about this stuff forever. This is amazing. Let me ask you. Yeah, I think you kind of quoted. You said, let me see here. Let me see what my questions were. You emphasized that evolution is the meaning of life. You kind of defined that, but like would you define true evolution as like a next level of humanity, and that is this is the next level of humanity?
Yeah, that's exactly where we're supposed to be. We're supposed to be, I mean, we've been around now for quite some time, and we still haven't broken through the sandbox. We're still in the sandbox, the little kitty sandbox. And the thing is the next stage of evolution is us taking responsibility for our own souls, our own actions, our own thoughts, our own choices. And the thing is we have religion that tries to do that for us, but when you're only good because you think you're going to go to hell, okay, when that's the only reason why you're trying to be positive is because you're trying to avoid a consequence, that's not real stuff. Okay, you have to do this because you want to be better. You have to do this because you want to see something better from yourself, and then you want to be able to bring a better reality to the people around you. It's not just about you evolving, but it's about helping others evolve as well. And if you're not doing things for the right reasons, then all the prayers in the world, getting down on your knees and praying to some deity, none of that's going to help you. None of it. Because let's say those deities truly exist. Let's say that God truly exists as such. But God can look at you and go, I know the only reason why you're praying to me is because you're trying to avoid hell. If I was that God, I'd be like, I don't want anything to do with you. That's called being lukewarm. According to the Bible, anyway, that's called being lukewarm. You're only there to save your own skin. And that doesn't mean anything to any deity. Okay? The whole thing is you're supposed to be taking, the reason why we were given free will, free choice, and all that stuff is because you're supposed to be taking responsibility for you and only you. And that's the only person that you can have control over is yourself. And so that's the big problem that we have with religion and everything else, is it's not providing a platform for evolution. It's just providing a platform for good behavior. And that doesn't work. I think you're muted. No, there you go.
No, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. And then you also teach that separation is an illusion. Can people tangibly experience that truth in their life?
I mean, separation is an illusion. People, here's the one thing. So we have the ability, if we were truly evolved. I mean, I can hear thoughts at times. There was a thing that I used to do when I was in my 20s, actually, before I really got into this stuff, which was I had this girlfriend at that time in my 20s. Her name was Jessica. I was like, I think from 22 to 25 years old that I was with her, something like that. And I was able to enter her dreams. She gave me permission one night, and then I started doing it. And then we started having shared dreams. But then it started scaring her because she was like, well, I'm not for sure I like you tinkering around in my brain, you know. But that is an example right there of how much separation there is between us, which is none. If I can work and literally enter someone's dreams and then have a shared dream with that person, and they're having the same exact thing happen that I'm experiencing, then that shows that there is zero separation, because our brains are just operating again on frequencies. All you have to do is meld with the frequency of someone else, and boom, you're there with them. It's that simple. And so we live in an illusion where we are all separate. We live in an illusion where, you know, what goes on in our heads stays in our heads. And for the most part, it's correct. You usually cannot enter someone else's thought structure. You usually cannot enter someone else's dreams, because usually we're focused so much on ourselves that none of that's possible anyway. When you are completely self-absorbed, you know, when you're self-absorbed and all you're doing is scrolling and then posting pictures and selfies, it makes it very difficult to ever have a shared experience with someone else. But when you're actively seeking to do those sort of things, and then you're actively seeking to evolve yourself, interesting things start to happen. But I will say this: it's going to be a while before mankind is ready to be telepathically connected, because we're all so scared of everything. We're scared of whether we have a pimple on our face. We're scared of whether or not our children are going to cross the road and get hit. When we are so programmed by fear, these are the very things that keep us separated. And so it's going to be a very long time before we cross those boundaries. But once we do, and once we really start to evolve to cross those boundaries, it's not going to be anything weird to us. We're going to automatically understand that this is the next stage. But right now, because mankind is so separated, you know, we live in a world where a bunch of monkeys are shooting guns at each other. We live in a world where a bunch of idiots are shooting missiles at each other. We live in a world where people rape, murder, and kill. Grape. And so that's the type of world that we live in. And until we get over a lot of these things, you know, I remember when COVID happened and people were literally fighting each other over toilet paper and paper towels. That's how separated we are. Is when you get to the point where you're willing to beat up your neighbor because they have more toilet paper than you. That shows where we are at. And like I said, I call us monkeys because that's pretty much where we're still at. We are not at any sort of an evolved state. We just appear that way. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. Well, this was amazing, man. I thought this was great. I'd love to have you back on again. I'd like to do it when we have a better connection, though, because like there's been like feedback through the interview, but like I'd like to try like next time with Zoom, and but like maybe even soon. If you want, we can do another interview. But I still think this came out okay. It's just we just had feedback. But this was amazing, man. I really enjoyed having you on. Like, is there anything else you want to share with the audience before we finish up for tonight? And thank you so much. This was awesome.
Well, number one, next time what we'll do is we'll do it through this, and then I will have a microphone set up in the other room. Number two, yeah, I mean, our school is called evolvedministry.org. Okay, evolvedministry.org. It's not ministries, it's just evolvedministry.org. And if you want to learn from us, if you want to see what we're about, I got my YouTube channel. All you have to do is look up Evolved Ministry or Michael Grubb on YouTube. And that pretty much shows what we're doing. It shows what we're about. We do live seminars. I do live training. So that's the other thing. We do things live. I also can do it remote, through Messenger and whatnot. But there aren't any other metaphysical schools where you can go and say, hey, I want to do this live and I want to see this in person. We do. Most other places will do everything that they can to avoid you ever coming to a live scenario with them because they can't perform it live. We can. So if this is something that you're interested in, this is what I do. This is how I make my living, and it's the only thing that I love to do. So
wow, that's awesome. And did you give the website? How can people sign up if they want to sign up right now?
Yeah, they just go to evolvedministry.org, and then it says right at the top, become a student. And then you pick which courses that you want to do, whether you want to do live training, whether you want to do in-person, the seminars, or whether you want to do our course curriculum. And our course curriculum is fantastic. It will take you from point A to point B. And we are revamping that right now as we speak. So, evolvedministry.org. And just come on through, talk to us. We also have a Facebook page. Just looked up Evolved Ministry on Facebook. We got Evolved Ministry Universal Mastery, and then we have a specific forum for our students. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you so much. And until next time. And I'll get in touch. I'd love to do this again. Thank you, Michael.
Take care, man.